Yo, what's up, guys? This is Why Not Be Reckless, aka Why Not Be Cast. I'm one of the HCS commentators, analysts, and content creators, and we have another HCS report where today we're doing a London recap. But of course, I'm gonna bring a guest in this time, just so this way, instead of getting my same old perspective, we're gonna give you a little bit of a different perspective, one from an actual competitor and from their experience with London, which I promise you, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. I would love to welcome Flurriously to the video. Flurriously, why don't you tell the people know something about yourself that maybe haven't heard of you before?
Yo, what's up, guys? It's Flurriously, aka Ivan, also known as the student gamer athlete here in the Halo community. Yeah, a little fun fact about me was I didn't compete in the 4v4 at this event, but I did do everything else. So
Sounds good. Sounds good. So a little bit of coaching, a little bit of free for all. We even talked about some of the side tournaments that went on. I brought my controller, hoping I was going to be able to play a little bit. And HCS had me on a tight leash. I'm even gonna lie, they would not let me out of their sight. So literally, my controller collected dust, which probably was for good reason. Because I'm not gonna lie, I ain't nowhere near y'all. But tell me a little bit about. We talked about this already, but tell me a little bit about the event from your experience playing. Obviously, coaching through the open bracket, a little bit of that free for all, and being on that second level of the venue.
yeah, so like for those who don't know, like this event, London was a lot different than all the other North American events we had. So for instance, right, we're on two different levels. So to get one venue, you had to take a little escalator. To get down, you had to take a little de-escalator. And just kind of moving and vibing all throughout this big stadium, right? And at first glance, like it didn't seem that big, but once you like walked into that main stage room, it was like built. It was built like the MLG days, right? From Halo 3 to Halo 2, Halo Reach. If you remember how the audience was a big part of the community and a big part of the tournament, it was exactly like that. Quadrant did a really good job of having all the fans' engagement with the players, as well as providing, a more ethical and like in-person type of tournament. Like for example, right, that main stage was like a center stage. So you're thinking of like WWE, right? The ring dead center. And then all throughout the room, surrounded, was chairs and full of Quadrant fans, all the Halo fans of your favorite teams on the main stage. And you had some little alcohol in there, right? So it got a little rowdy, but for the most part, I enjoyed the event as a spectator, especially because of that atmosphere. I think they did a solid job getting everyone engaged, and it was really cool. So
Yeah, I feel like I feel like during the MLG days, a lot of the events were held in like hotel conferences, like hotel conference rooms, and it kind of gave me a little bit of that feel, like off the beginning. Like I was like, oh, snap! I feel like I'm in a hotel conference room, and I'm feeling like I'm in the back of the MLG days. And then that whole center stage with the small monitors around, it was actually pretty sick. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't ready for no damn marching band. I don't know if y'all were watching,
yeah.
but there was a freaking marching band there, and that was on another level because you already had the crazy hype from like you said, the maybe drinking a little bit Quadrant fans. Every time Quadrant get a kill, people going crazy. But then when they got a win, you drums, trumpets, it was legitimately, it felt like a soccer game type of vibes with that passion and that level of like of intensity from the fans.
I agree. It actually brought me back to like you're sitting in the stands and like your local high school football team is on the field and you have the marching band right next to you, right? They're just blasting that drums. It was crazy, dude. I don't think I've ever will experience another type of event like London. So I'm glad I went.
Definitely happy I win as well. One thing that's really important to me, and I know a lot of people within the Halo community, is exposure on the open bracket. I feel like there's a lot that we could be doing better. But I feel like there was a step forward that went with HCS where there was a report. So it was Lethal, who obviously was a big part of the EU scene. He was running as like a sideline reporter, in addition to being analyst on the desk. So this way, like I didn't get the chance to see all of the content that he did, but I would imagine like in between matches, He's giving people updates like, hey, by the way, team X, Y, and Z pulled off the 2-0 versus this team. They were 1 round away from making it to pool play. Now they go to the lower bracket, or this was a game 5, 48-49, 1 kill decided, and team B was able to beat team A. Like, I'm sure there was a lot of that kind of content, in addition to just pulling, really cool dudes aside and just having like little interviews with them and whatnot. Like, when it came to like the experience from the open bracket side of things, how did you feel about that? And did you like the idea of them having more content around the open bracket?
Yeah, so I think an important thing, along with like the main stage and the feature stations and the pro teams in general, is kind of getting more coverage on the amateur players, right? Because it's not Halo without those type of players. They provide the competitive, longevity to the game. And so they did a pretty good job. I do recall seeing like I called the European LVT team, but they were going upstairs and downstairs, is all over, and they were giving like player interviews after like their series, right? And so I coached Queen X3 and her squad. I think it was like Cranberry, Pink Sakura, and Command Station. And we went to an intense game 3 in the open bracket and winners 2, and then we won that. And these guys are pulling them aside, giving them some like exposure, right, through their platform. And it's super cool and unique to kind of get those experiences, because we did miss LVT at this event. Don't get me wrong. And those guys kind of fulfilled that gap and that need of kind of getting the player exposure. And like from a competitive standpoint, right, kind of getting that exposure provides a lot more leverage when it comes to building their brand, building their name as a player, and recognition. And it's kind of acts as a motivational factor for those players, because if they do well, right, and the chances of them kind of getting praised for doing well, they kind of get in that positive feedback loop of like, hey, I'm going to keep going further. I'm going to keep going harder. I'm going to start grinding more, because the competitive scene is giving them that platform to speak up and to kind of showcase their skills. So good job to that. And then also too, I know some players are also streaming on their own phones whenever they felt like a good series was going by. I think Dark Matter, shout out Dark Matter.
Yep.
He was streaming out some of his teammates, 2v2s and free-for-alls, as well as one of the more important Fortis matches for pool play. I think it was like Mortally's team and Mind Freak, I think. One of those teams, but yeah. We could definitely do more in the open bracket scene. I wish they had like casters set aside just for the open bracket, right? That'd be really cool, but I'm speaking into existence, so.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Like, there's so many times where like, well, we're not live, and we've told them personally, like, hey, look, give us a mic. Like, we don't even got to be live on stream. Give us a mic, and we'll just hype shit up right, like literally right from the actual venue itself. Obviously some stuff that we want to work on. I thought the reporter idea was really cool. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I was actually kind of jealous that Lethal got the chance to do that. Like, I was over here like, yo, when we go to Atlanta, I would love to do something like that. Like, I would love to be in the trenches and just finding people, interviewing people, giving people updates about what's going on in the open bracket. Like, so this way, by the time a team makes it into pool play, we've already kind of told a little bit of their story about how they got there. Like, so many times, 4 teams will make it out of open bracket into pool play, and maybe, I mean, obviously the people that watch competitive, that watch LVT Halo like week after week, they know what's going on. Like, they know the teams that are kind of in the running to make it into the top 16. But there's a lot of casual viewers who literally only watch main events, and that's it. And like, they don't know a story. They literally have no idea. So I'm not gonna. I was kind of jealous of Lethal that he got the chance to do that. And like, I don't know exactly, if I'll be at Atlanta or not. But if there's room to do that again, like, I would love to do that, so we could get, like you said, more exposure on the open bracket. Because there is more than that goes on with these tournaments than just the top 12 that are automatically in pool play. Literally, most of these tournaments have 60 to 100 teams playing, and so obviously there's a lot more going on. Definitely want to do more with that in the future. Well, coming from a competitor standpoint, tell me a little bit about your journey going into these events, whether it was London or whether it's any other event. Like, what's your process? You know, you wake up, you know, Wednesday or Thursday, you got to hit a flight. Tell me a little bit about your process when going into these events.
Yeah, so like for every event, I always try to fly in on Wednesday night or like Wednesday day. Get there a day before. So what I want is typically like a travel day, then a full day before the event starts to kind of like decompress, you know, kind of explore the city a bit, get opportunities that I don't have enough time for later in the weekend because I'll be competing. And then the night before, so Thursday night, I'm eating good. I'm making sure I'm hitting a workout. I'm just making sure the vibes and I'm taking care of myself, right? And then Friday morning, always wake up early, right? Off a good 7, 8 hours of sleep at minimum. And eat a good breakfast, right? Fuel up, get a little bit of caffeine in me. Sometimes I like to start Starbucks or like whatever coffee is available. I'm a pretty big pre-workout guy, so I wish I could bring my tub. I would take it before open bracket, but some sort of like caffeine, right, to kind of get me going. And then if I'm competing with a team at that event, it's all positive vibes and bonding, right? I think a lot of players kind of miss out on like team is like more business like, and they kind of break that stigma. It is to a point business, right? But teams that play as friends and on a professional level do phenomenal. So I'm gonna bring up an example, like a team I always looked up to was like Native Red before they had their current roster, right? It was like
Mhm.
with Manny, Druk, Talik, Mikey, and those guys all grinded out like matchmaking. They played customs together. They played in these ace lobbies together, and like at these events, like these guys bonded like brothers, right? And when you have that chemistry, it's really hard to break that when they're competing because they're so used to each other. They can take the criticism, they can take the notes, they can really work on building their team chemistry so much more than like a team who's just like teaming for like points or business per se. But regardless, right?
Mhm.
It's Friday morning and you're about to walk in, you're taking things serious, you're locked in. And I do see people like I know and I'm really good friends with. I always give them a little dab up, but like I'm always focused on myself and my teammates getting us in the right mindset that we're about to go to war for this
Mhm.
entire day. And the goal is to eventually make pool play, but you know, after every hour, you're just counting down until you play. You just get into that mindset that yes, you are that player, you are that team, you're going to do well. So just positive reinforcement.
I love that. That like I didn't get the chance to compete much, to be completely honest with you. But it brings me back to like when I played basketball. Like I played basketball in middle school, high school. I wanted to play in college, and I was definitely big on that camaraderie. I feel like number one, if you really are boys with your teammates, I can hold you accountable. I can say different. I can say things to you that I can't say to other people if I'm kind of walking on eggshells. Like, you know, I don't have
Yeah.
that level of like comfort with. So I feel like on that level alone, something happens, like I can talk to you. I don't need to walk on eggshells. I don't need to. We don't need to do it. Like, no, yo, what happened here? Like we can't let this happen where it's really tough to do that when you don't have that same level of like, whether it's respect or even level of friendship with your teammate. Something's gonna slide, and then some things maybe build up, and then, you know, maybe implode sometimes. Like I would
Yeah.
imagine. So I respect that big time, and I feel like if I did more competing, I would definitely focus more on that. Because I feel like I don't know. I feel like in order to be a vocal leader, you know, you got to be vocal. Sometimes I be a little crazy, but you got to be vocal. And I feel like you can't be afraid to be able to step up and hold people accountable, or, you know, just talk about it, figure out what exactly went wrong, and maybe be able to get it right. So I do love that point of view. And I bet almost every team that you've been a part of, that as far as when it comes to maybe even not a vocal leader, but as far as like a vibes leader, I can imagine you're definitely, if not at the top of the list, the top of the list.
Thank you. I try to get my teammates, even though I don't know you that well, right? I just met you like the day before we started teaming recently. I try to get my teammates on a good wavelength. And as a teammate, like that's the best thing you can do, right? Yes, you can't like physically, or I guess in any capacity, make your teammates play better, but you can make them feel better. And that's like a really important thing that I think every player can take to their heart.
Love that. I want to spin it more towards focusing in on actually what went down in London. You know me, I could talk for hours. So I'm gonna try my best where we're gonna try to rapid fire through the pool. I'm gonna read through each pool, read some of the results, and just go to you and ask about if anything was really a surprise for you. I'm gonna try to get through pools as fast as possible, only because I know we're probably gonna spend a little bit more time on bracket play. So I'm going to hop in on pool play. We'll hyper focus right onto pool A, and we'll talk about the fact that Proton and SSG 3-0ing BH3. That was one of the European teams that made it into pool play guarantee. For those of you guys at home that don't know, Proton Gaming, which now is half of that native red roster. You got Talik and Druck joining the likes of Collect and Last Shot going up against Space Station Gaming. They did take a game off of SSG. Meanwhile, they also 3-0'd Mind Freak, who also were 3-0'd by SSG. That was one of the Australian teams, captained by Scoobmeister, coming with the mouse and keyboard. They made it out of open bracket and gave us a little bit of Australian representation going into pool play, which was really cool. They also 3-0'd BH3 to secure themselves the number 3 spot. So not only making it out of open, making it into pool play, and being one of the first Australian teams, I would imagine, to make it into bracket play in that third place spot. Did any of this surprise you whatsoever, Ivan?
Actually, yeah. So like Proton taking a game off SSG, I was rooting for Proton to actually beat SSG in the pool play and just in the tournament in general. I know those guys are extremely talented, they're extremely hardworking. And so to kind of see them take a map off, right, and then kind of fall short in those other few maps, they're nail biters. So a little bit surprised Space Station with the 3-1. I was expecting more of like a 2-3 in favor of Proton, but it's pool play, right? You still have another chance in champ bracket. As for Mind Freak, that was probably the biggest shocker. Coming out of the open bracket, those guys were looking pretty good, right? They beat some pretty notable teams in the open bracket. I believe they defeated Mortally's team, right? Bittersweet, NA. And so after I heard about that, I'm kind of like, okay, Mind Freak has potential, right? But to come out swinging and to make like a record placing at this tournament with a top 12 placing, beating BH3 3-0, that was surprising. You know, coming as a pool play team, I expected, some competition there. So for 3-0 and to secure top 3 in their pool, that surprised me a lot.
Yeah, definitely a big shout out to Mind Free. We need some representation now outside of North America. Everybody from North America, we all know we on top, but I'm happy to see Mind Free coming out of open and really earning their spot going into London. I will say SSG 3-0 only dropping one map. I want to say that's kind of surprising, but really not. They came in as the number 1 seed, so they theoretically had the easiest pool out of all the other pools. They're supposed to be on paper, although Proton Gaming was one of the dark horse teams because we know how dangerous that roster could be. SSG come out with one of the best records for a reason, and we're going to go on to Pool B, which if SSG on paper had the easiest pool, I would definitely say this was the hardest going into Pool B. You had Optic Gaming Sentinels, who a large amount of people had them top 4, top 5 in the entire world. Quadrant, who not only are a great team, but on top of that had that home field advantage. And then you had Bittersweet coming out of open bracket to join this pool of death. And although a very good Bittersweet roster, they drew the short end of the stick coming into here. We'll talk about, obviously, Optic 3-2ing over Sentinels. A Game 5 victory. That was huge. We loved watching that. Quadrant and Sentinels going to Game 5. This was a little surprising to me, but that was big. Sentinels winning that one. Then you have Optic with the 3-1 over Quadrant. Sentinels with the 3-1 over Bittersweet. 3-0 for Optic, and then another 3-1 for Quadrant over Bittersweet. And Bittersweet, although taking 2 games in pool play, it obviously wasn't enough to get into the top 3. The floor is yours, Ivan. If there's anything you want to talk about, I'm sure there was a lot.
Yeah, there is quite a bit. It's not surprised Optic came out number 1 in their pool. You know, it's Optic. Those guys have a lot of ice when it comes to tournament play. So to see them at number 1 in their pool, not surprised at all. Sentinel and Quadrant, right? I feel like that's a big toss-up just because it was Quadrant's home tournament. And you know how much of a boost a team gets when their home crowd is surrounding them the entire time. Players feed off that positive energy, feed off that environment. So it's a little surprising with the game 5 with Sentinel and Quadrant. You know, Sentinels did have a lot of ice this event. Those guys were going through the gauntlet when it came to playing a series out. So to see a 2-3 was quite surprising. Sentinels seem like a strong team coming into this tournament. And Quadrant, you know, one of the best European teams as well. So.
Right. Okay. A 3-1 Quadrant, Optic, you know, it's a pretty convincing win for Optic, I'd say. Those guys are... Quadrant isn't as capable, I'd say, on paper when it comes to that team. So 3-1 victory for Optic seems like a predictable outcome to that. And the Bittersweet, you know, those guys gave it their all. I actually, you're not supposed to do this, but I did anyways. But I was attempting to coach their team after my Queen X3 roster unfortunately got eliminated. And I was getting a lot of insight on that team, and they seemed like they were playing pretty well with just the 4 of them. But I do remember talking to Piggy, and Piggy was telling me, like, if they had a coach, then, like, things would probably be different. So I'm just wondering if I was on that stage with them, coaching them, maybe would have seen, like, a game 5 possibly. But they gave valiant effort against those teams. They're really hard to beat. And you can tell, like, the amount of practice that those top 3 teams get versus Bittersweet. To see them going 0-3 in a pool play with a few matches taken off, something that's tippable for sure.
Yeah, I feel like Bittersweet's been good for a very long time now. They were given like complexity some hard times during the open events. They've had really good scrims. They've been doing their thing. It's just like I said, I feel like it was just bad luck that you end up in this pool. Like, you know, you even took games off of Sentinels and Quadrant, who obviously were on fire this event, both of them. So it just tells you that if they were in any other pool, there's a very good chance they make it out. Like a very good chance they make it out. But sadly, they ended up in here. I think Optic versus Sentinels was awesome. The game, we had 2 game 5s in the same pool. Just tells you how tight this pool B was. But obviously, it's Optic Gaming that come out with one of the best records in the 9-3. Sentinels came out number 2, and Quadrant came out as that number 3 seed in their hometown, or their home event, starting off with the elimination bracket, which is not exactly where Quadrant wanted to be, especially with how well they played. We'll go to Pool C. This is gonna be a whole nother video for you guys, but in case you didn't hear, which I'm pretty sure everybody has heard by now, Complexity was disqualified after a ruling by 343 involving Spartan's SSD. Now, I've been trying to gather some information from both sides, and so that's why I can make a video, try to give you guys as much intel as possible so you guys can make your own decision on what you feel went down during the event. But just know Complexity did at one point take FaZe to a game 5. They did lose that game 5, but then during the disqualification, they lost all of their game records. So Complexity technically DQ'd and in 4th place. Reversal Perfect again moved into 3rd place, and then Cloud9, who I believe took FaZe. Yes, Cloud9 also took FaZe to game 5 in Pool C, which, you know, technically, you know, was a tough pool, but definitely nowhere near the difficulty of Pool B. FaZe were actually tested multiple times. Like Reversal Perfy got a game off of them. They technically went to 2 game 5s outside of the disqualification, and obviously FaZe had a very good tournament. In case you guys don't know, I won't give you a spoiler, I guess, but you probably know that FaZe did very good. If you want to talk about the situation, or you want to talk whatever it is you want to talk about, Ivan, the floor is yours. It's Pool C.
Yeah, no, Pool C was a crazy pool, right? Not just because of what happened in complexity, but just like the games itself, right? Like on paper, right? You think like, wow, like this pool is probably like you can probably predict like FaZe, complexity, then C9, the reversal perfy, but like no, like I really think Cloud9 has a lot of talent and a lot of ice. Like that's a LAN team. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Skeptify going to a game 5 against like one of the big dogs. Like this guy, something about Money J, he can like lead his teammates, he can lead the troops into like to go to war. And like to see them go to game 5 with FaZe, but coming out short was a heartbreaker. I was actually rooting for like an upset, like seeing FaZe get hit once with a game 5 loss against C9, like that would have made people's heads spin with how the tournament turned out. And then, Reversal Perfy, those guys were on fire. They didn't drop a single map all throughout Open. They came into Saturday flawless on map wins. But the competition from Open Bracket, to pool play it's astronomical, right? It's insane. And so for them to go to a lot of close games but unable to close them out, it just shows the potential that squad has, right? Like Cherish and Common and Haynes, like those guys have got that camaraderie we were talking about earlier with like team cohesion and all that stuff, right? I think their force is breaking shot too, and I think 3/4 of that roster team before. So expect great things from Reversal Perfy. Keep on your radar. I expect those guys to hit a top 8 placing here pretty soon at the next event come Atlanta, and then complexity, right? I've heard a lot of different opinions on this. I've heard a lot of different things being tossed around. Being at the event and getting some insider information, I can tell you the situation isn't as dramatic as some people may claim it to be, right? Yes, he did put an SSD that wasn't approved by HCS into his computer to optimize it, but to call it like, yes, it broke the rule book under the guidelines of cheating, I wouldn't really say it's like the cheating you think it would be, like wall hacks, aimbotting. To me, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal if I'm being honest with you, right? He's a good guy. Spartan has good intentions when it comes to this type of thing, right? He's not blatantly trying to screw people over, and he has been a big advocate for PC optimizations at LANs, right? Recently, we did get approved for overclock controllers on HCS tournaments. So, to all those Spartan the Dog haters, with all of my compassion and love, hold back on the man. He isn't a bad guy. Cut him some slack, right? People make mistakes. Yes, he should have asked for approval to put his SSD in the computer, but it doesn't make Spartan an all bad guy, okay? That's enough I had to say on that. Free Spartan.
And this is pretty much the same vibe I've been getting from anybody who like was at the event. Pretty much the same exact vibe. Like, it's definitely being blown out of proportion. Partially due to everybody just loving drama, and partially because there's a lot of people who love to hate on Spartan, and it's been like that for a little while now. Like I said, I'm trying to get as much information as possible. That's gonna be a whole nother video, but really the same vibe that I've been getting from everybody. And I will say I'm also happy that Spartan didn't just like tweet out and like have like an emotional like response right away. It definitely shows a level of maturity, because this all came at him like at once, and I'm sure like he wanted to really like go in and get his side out there, but definitely holding back. But actually, I don't think I've even seen him on Twitter at all. So holding back, waiting for the stupidity to blow over, and then he's gonna give, I'm sure, his own statement and how he feels about the situation at some point in time. But yeah, same type of vibes that I heard about that. I'll skip over that because I do want to focus on the positives, like you were trying to lead to. And Reversal Perfy, like you said, Common, Haynes, and Breaking Shot. That's 3/4 of one of the old Proton Gaming rosters back in Season 2. So definitely been there, done that kind of team. Cloud9, the moment they got put together with Sabbath, Spectre, and like you said, Septify and the boys, they immediately pulled off an upset against Optic Gaming, I think like the very first or second tournament. So that told me right off the rip. I was like, oh snap, this team is the real deal. And we got to see that again, not only finishing second place in pool, but also taking FaZe to a game 5. Like, I'm right there with you. Like, I feel like I never root for teams. Like, I don't have like favorite teams, but I root for storylines. And Cloud9 upsetting FaZe in pool play would have been a storyline, especially they come back and win right afterwards. So that was really interesting. FaZe were tested in Pool C, and they really came out stronger, I guess, because of it. Because out of all the first place teams, you see like 9-1 here. You see, 9-3 here, 9-3 here. Technically, it says 6-3, but this was a 9-5. Like they took the most L's out of every number 1 seed coming out of pool play. So take that for what you guys want at home, ladies and gentlemen. But we're gonna move on to Pool D, where Shopify Rebellion 3-2 over Into the Breach. Into the Breach, fresh off of, I think, a top 6 finish at Arlington, came up with a lot of expectations. They lost 3-2 to Shopify Rebellion. They beat Native 3-2. Then things got a little bit weird. Shopify Rebellion 3-0 Native. ITB were 3-0'd by SWAT. And this is important because SWAT took a game off of Shopify Rebellion. I believe when it came to when it came to tiebreakers, that might have been one of the reasons why SWAT moved forward, and Into the Breach end up in 4th place here, and I believe SWAT were in 3rd. So we actually had a little bit of representation from each region, and that included SWAT.
Yeah, so Pool D was definitely like a toss-up, right? Except for Shopify. Let me make that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Shopify has proven to everyone that this is a top 3 contender, possible tournament winner team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those guys have been putting a lot of work in. You can see the progress that Mikey and crew have been making, right? And let's talk about Mental for a second too. Like, this guy has been on this org for since day one, and everyone has been like rotated in and out, and been trying to build off of Mental's team. This is Mental's team, right? And he's proven a lot of resilience, right? Don't get me wrong. I counted him out year 1. I didn't really think a player could make that transition into Halo, especially with all the Halo 5 players coming into the scene, getting a full year's worth of new competition. I was expecting to see like the people I was playing around with to be like the top dogs, but no, he proved us all wrong, including myself. So it's typical performance from Shopify going 3-0 in this pool. Those guys, I'm hoping we'll get a chip here pretty soon, God willing. But yeah, Native, SWAT, and Into the Breach, right? I was actually pretty surprised that SWAT got 3-0'd by Into the Breach, because in the open bracket, those guys were untouchable, bro. The Mexican pro team, something about them when it comes to playing all together, like those guys can make the biggest upsets to the biggest names. And so seeing them get 3-0'd by Into the Breach, but then somehow still getting out into the pool was incredible, right? Because they took that one game off Shopify.
Well, actually, it looks like according to this, SWAT 3-0'd Into the Breach. It was the opposite.
My fault. Let me take my words back. Because they 3-0'd Into the Breach, right? I was surprised. I was surprised that, because Into the Breach got top 6 last event.
Yep.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And to get out in Pool D right away was heartbreaking, to say the least. I was expecting to see more, Woodham plays with the keyboard, mouse and keyboard. That guy kind of put a new meta out there that mouse and keyboard is pretty viable now. And, that pool is grueling. Any of those 3 teams could have made it out.
And I do want to remind everybody at home that Native Gaming technically weren't supposed to be in pool play. And it's funny because I'll give you guys a little bit of inside information. I took a Uber to the event with Hoaxer, and they were actually happy about playing through open bracket and said that they really feel like they needed the reps, and they know where they want to be as a team, and just more reps together and going through open bracket and seeing multiple different teams, they felt like was actually really good for them. But because and I apologize, I don't remember the actual team name. I'm sorry. They went in as still deciding, and then they changed their team name going to the event, and had to go through open bracket because apparently King Nick couldn't make the event, so it was Monster, Rami, King Nick, and they ended up having to play with Shock, I want to say, as their substitute player going to the event and then going to open bracket. So Native Gaming actually was supposed to compete in open bracket, and they wanted to, but then they were forced to go into pool play because still deciding weren't able to bring their full roster to the event. So I thought that was really important to talk about a little bit, especially because Native kind of went in like, unprepared for this and ended up having to, kind of go on the fly, and hey, they came out in second place. Not bad for them.
Oh yeah, that whole ordeal with the Fluffy Aimers is what that team was called.
Oh yeah, that's what it was called. Yeah, they were still deciding for a bit. Like their name was still deciding, and then it was Fluffy Aim. God bless.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty unique team name to say the least. But shout out to the organization, Fluffy Aimers. Anyways, yeah, so those guys did pick up Alex Shock since he was a local there. I'm just gonna say it, but I wish I got picked up on that roster. I felt like I would have gotten a pretty good results with that. I was kind of hoping to get picked up by a last second team like that, because knowing you're traveling across the ocean, chances are you're missing a teammate. So I was there already. But regardless, yeah, Native getting put into pool play and performing, top two. I think those guys are ready for it, honestly. That team was capable. That team had a lot of reps against those top teams already, so to see them getting second place, I wasn't too surprised. But whichever way you look at it, through open bracket or just set directly into pool play, Native was making it in the champ bracket.
Shoot, you ain't no stranger to making it out of open bracket. If I remember correctly, I believe you were in pool play back in season 1. It was, I want to say, you, Gold Star, BR, and JK. Am I going crazy? Maybe I'm going crazy.
I think we got out into. I never play pool play. No, Kansas City, but we went through open bracket, and it was kind of weird. I think it was like top 24 teams made it out.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, and I think we got sent to Elam round 1, and then the last place of every pool went to Elam round 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would have been exciting though to see you get picked up. Is that? I mean, obviously you probably had a good time coaching, but I don't know, man. That could have been fun actually.
Either way, yeah.
Let's see. Let me line this up properly so you can see it. All right. So, by the way, I don't know if I'm still sharing my screen so you can see that. And we're gonna go into actual bracket play. We'll start off in the winner's side where things were hot right off the rip. Space Station Gaming and Sentinels, and another game 5. It's so crazy how we talk about like how the league is getting tighter and tighter. The competition continues to get better and better, and we saw yet another game 5 in the round 1 of winners, and that's Sentinels and Space Station Gaming. But Space Station Gaming did win out and make it into the winners bracket semifinals. How do you feel about Sentinels? So, taking Optic to a game 5, taking Sentinels, SSG to a game 5, and also in pool play, also taking Quadrant and winning a game 5 as well. How do you feel about Sentinels?
Sentinels is definitely a team to watch out for as one of the top teams, right? They haven't really solidified themselves as like a top 3 contender, but that team has a lot of ice when it comes to these like high peak adrenaline type games, right? Like taking Space Station, right? One of the this team has won tournaments to game 5. It's off the rip, right? Like these guys are boo boo doo boo, right? You don't know if you saw that video of him like doing like the force choke, right? That was crazy. Like just seeing that alone, you can just tell like that team was ready and locked and loaded. Like they were going off, and I was rooting for them honestly. Like I hope to see more storylines like that where like an I guess not like an underdog team like Sentinels compared to like Space Station would win that, and then kind of just make the loser elimination bracket to chaos, right? Because no one's expecting to play Space Station Elam round one, right? No one is. So if they would have made that happen, that would have been crazy.
Literally, as you were talking about the boo boo doo boo video, I literally pulled it up, and while you're talking, you just see boo boo using the Force on SSG. God bless. This is actually hilarious. I'm not gonna lie.
That was crazy.
Imagine they would have won. He actually probably would have ripped somebody's throat out with the Force if they actually would have won. Like something crazy would have happened there. Right. Meanwhile, matchup afterwards, Shopify Rebellion 3-1 over Cloud9. You talked about Cloud9 being the real deal, and took a game off of Shopify Rebellion, which obviously, you know, a little bit of spoiler alert, SSG couldn't even take a game off of Shopify Rebellion in that semifinals. Cloud9 managed to do it at least in round one of the winners bracket. I'll do FaZe versus FaZe 3-1 over Native Gaming, and then Optic 3-0 over Proton. Anything that you want to talk about out of those three matchups?
You know, FaZe, they have been tested, right? They were tested quite a bit in the pool play. So to see them come out the next day as a 3-1 against Native, I think they kind of like talked to each other like, yeah, it's time to lock in, right? Like this is when the tournament actually starts. So Native put up a good fight, but ended up coming up short. So seeing a FaZe 3-1 victory there, not really too surprised. Optic 3-0ing Proton. Again, I'm a big Proton fan, also a pretty big Optic fan. It came down to a few plays. If we were to break down that series and the map scores, like it came down to a few plays where I think if Proton had momentum map one, we could have seen a game 5. I think that team is capable of beating Optic, right? When it comes to online scrims and whatnot, they've been performing substantially well. So when it came to like London, right, it was Druck's first event back, and I don't even know how long. Right, the first one this year, I believe.
Since season 1 Worlds, it's crazy to think about that. Since season 1 Worlds.
So, like, if you think about it, like that core 3, well, I guess core 2 now, was like, not even core 3, like just Talik in general, right? That guy has been like rotating substitute players every event, and he's finally back with his, you know, his main duo, Druck. So I was kind of hoping for them to take a few maps off Optic and hopefully force a game 5 or even closing out game 4. So seeing a 3-0 there makes me sad, but Optic played well. So
I was trying to find a tweet out. I remember seeing something on Twitter where like Proton Gaming were winning like 187's like 23 in strongholds or something. It was a big lead for them, and Optic and end up coming back like crazy in that strongholds, but that alone showed that okay, a couple of things go their way and they take that strongholds game, and then who knows what happens in game 2 Slayer when you got a bit of momentum on your side. Like Proton Gaming are good, they really are, which we'll obviously talk about them in the lower bracket, but it is Optic Gaming with the 3-0, and I'm not gonna sit there and say I'm super surprised that Optic won it, even though I would like to see Proton take at least one of those games. And if you don't like 3-0s, you guys will be a little bit mad because we got 2 fat 3-0s in the winners semifinals, and it's crazy because like it's like a cliche for us casters to talk about like, oh, it was a 3-0 but it was very competitive, but both of these were very competitive 3-0s, but still Shopify Rebellion 3 over SSG, and even FaZe with the 3 over Optic Gaming. I remember this lower bracket matchup being very interesting to me because Optic 3-0'd FaZe in Arlington, and 2 out of the 3 map and game mode combinations were in this series. So when I saw that, I was like, oh snap, Optic already 3-0'd them with 2 of the same map and game mode combinations. I was like, oh, this could actually be another 3-0. This map and game mode layout does not favor FaZe, and FaZe still somehow not only beat Optic, but hand them that same 3-0, which I found to be very interesting. But that's the winners semifinals.
Yeah, no, when you brought that up, right, in the past, like that matchup, 2 of the 3 maps being played at a previous event, you think on paper Optic would win that, convincingly. But FaZe, like, don't count them out, man. Those guys are some demons when it comes to Halo. Though, like what their coach said, right? They put in a lot of work and they put in a lot of effort into like their map pools, into the 3-0 Optic on the maps that they were beat on previously. This shows and proves that FaZe have become not a dominant force, but an unstoppable force. And I think it's good for them to go 3-0 against Optic in a convincing fashion like that, because that just cemented the deal essentially. Like that team was a chip contender for London. And then Space Station Shopify, that caught me surprised because both teams are extremely well. Like they're really good. But the fashion that Shopify played at in that series to come out on top in such a dominant fashion, right? It was convincing that I don't know. Like it scared me how well some of the Shopify players were playing. Some of the plays that they were making. We had like a highlight reel on that series alone. We could make a montage with like a 10-minute montage of just how crazy those players. Like I think Donnie Suppressed was hitting some unbelievable no scopes on some of these Space Station players, right? And he was just screaming. Like you can tell when someone hits like peak dopamine, like they're unstoppable. And Shopify came out and proved to the world and to like everyone else that don't sleep on them, right? When they're coming in hot, they're coming in hot.
I'm not gonna lie, I was talking my junk after Shopify. One day, I kept telling people like back at Arlington, I'm like, yo, you guys are sleeping on Shopify Rebellion, and I kept talking about how crazy Suppressed is, and people called me faded. People said I want to bring up, I want to make a montage of the YouTube comments that every time I would talk about Shopify Rebellion, I'm getting roasted, and then Arlington's a 4th place. They win an online tournament. They get 2nd place, and the next 2 come out here in 3-0 Space Station Gaming. I came back on the desk at London. I was talking some trash. I'm like, bro, it's so crazy how people still have their eyes like wide shut towards this team. Like they refuse to believe that this team is the real deal, and it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I'm not gonna lie, like I got caught sleeping on FaZe. Like I feel like going into this event, I said 3rd place. I said I had SSG and Optic in my grand finals. Especially after pool play, like I kept like SSG clean running pool play, Optic clean running pool play, and the hardest pool play. FaZe taking a game 5 by 2 different teams, and the open bracket team took a game off you. Like I felt like I didn't feel like they were locked. Like I didn't. So I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I got caught sleeping on FaZe, and FaZe then I guess I woke up the sleeping giant because FaZe 3-0 Shopify Rebellion in the winners bracket finals, and this is where they started to look like from the semifinals on, or even I guess not even from round 1 on, undefeated. This is where you looked at FaZe, and you're like, wow, this is the championship form type of FaZe. Maybe Native stealing a game off of them was surprising, but a 3 over Optic, a 3-0 in the winners bracket finals, like okay. This right here is FaZe looking like they're ready to win a damn championship.
I agree. FaZe, they proved to everyone that day that those guys were not giving up much of anything to any team, right? And to see them come out, with a little shaky start, I guess, not shaky, but like they weren't as locked with the first match of the day against Native, but then as they got warmer, they 3-0'd Optic, and at that point, like, good God, give them any team, and they're probably 3-0'ing them. If you give them a best of 9, they're probably 5-0'ing that team. And like, yeah, Shopify did play really well against Space Station. They're coming up hot off a win off SSG, but like FaZe just comes out, they shut off that momentum game 1, and then the game 2, let it roll. So
I still always wonder, like, what if winners bracket finals was played on Saturday? Like Shopify Rebellion, they're a momentum driven team, and like having a whole day, like having a whole day in between. I don't know. I feel like that kind of iced them a little bit. Like I wonder, like if they would have played winners finals, like fresh off a 3-0 SSG, would have been different, or maybe FaZe didn't need championship Sunday to lock in. Maybe they were already ready to lock in once Saturday hit. Who knows?
oh, it's true, right? I didn't realize that the winter bracket final wasn't played till Sunday, right?
Yes, I mean, no matter what,
Yeah.
they still looked amazing against Optic, and that was on Saturday too. But I always wonder, like, what would have happened if it was a little bit different.
True.
All right, so lower bracket round number 1. I'm gonna rapid fire these 4 matchups. You can talk about whatever you want. Sentinels 3-1 over Reversal Perfy. Cloud9 3-1 Mind Freak. Quadrant 3-0 Native Gaming, and Proton Gaming 3-0 SWAT Esports. Those were the 4 matches in round 1.
So Sentinels 3-1 against Reversal Perfy. It's typical that Cherish and company got one map off Sentinels. Those guys were coming with the force, dude. Like that's the dark side right there, bro. I don't know if you could do much against that when you make against Sentinels, especially this early in the tournament. But again, I was talking to Cherish after they played Sentinels, and he did tell me it just came down to a few plays that ultimately costed them. Him, going against a 3-1 score and getting a top 12 placing, you still got a still a commendable tournament. Great job for Fizzle Perfy. I'm expecting that team to get better as the year goes on, going to Worlds. Cloud9 versus Mind Freak. Cloud9 here, I think, is a stronger team, right? I don't think Mind Freak has enough repetitions against these like top teams, and Cloud9 being a LAN team, it just seems like Cloud9 was probably going to beat them. And Mind Freak did take a map off that, which is really good and representing of the region. But again, C9, pretty strong team. Now, Quadrant versus Native, the 3-0. This is where I'm thinking like the crowd had something to say with it, I think the crowd kind of got Quadrant hyped up here, and they started going on a steamroll. And Native, I don't think, was ready for that. If you were in that room, Tony, the feature station room, I'm telling you right now, if you put Quadrant against any of these top teams, you're seeing some insane reactions. Anytime these players on Quadrant would get a kill, the crowd would erupt, right? The room would shake. And me as a competitor, like if I was sitting across the team, I'm getting yelled at after every average kill from the enemy team, you can't really think, right? Like you're just kind of just like flustered. And Quadrant coming out 3-0 doesn't surprise me, especially with the crowd behind them. Those guys were looking on fire. And then finally, Proton versus SWAT. I think Proton kind of realized, like, yeah, we just had a really good series for this potential series to win. And so playing against SWAT, I don't think SWAT was ready for Proton, and they kind of just knew what they were doing. So not a surprise there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm yeah, no surprise here, no surprise here on the first 2. I'll even go as far as say, like, I feel like Native Gaming have been struggling a bit this year. They started to step it up like a week before the event. They beat Shopify in a scrim. They obviously came into pool play unexpected and still stepped it up in pool D. Like I really like that out of them. They took a game off of FaZe as well. That was big, but I feel like they've been struggling for a little while now. Meanwhile, Quadrant, they had home field advantage. I believe in tapping bud supremacy, so I will say the 3-0 in favor of Proton Gaming. I'm not surprised Proton won. I'm surprised SWAT got swept, if anything. But going into round 2, Cloud9 taking Sentinels to a game 5. Like you said, they're a freaking LAN team and almost beating Sentinels. That would have been a big win by them against the number 4, against one of the top seeded Sentinels. And then you have Quadrant with the 3-1 over Proton. I know for a fact that crowd had something to do with this, because I feel like this matchup maybe screams Quadrant winning, maybe, but this matchup screams game 5 to me, and it ended up in 4.
Yeah, so Sentinels versus Cloud9, again, like you said, Tony, like C9 being a LAN team, like I'm not surprised they went to game 5. Sentinels, I just think were, dude, those guys, man, they are a game 5 team. Like, no doubt about it. They've they're capable of clutching. And then against, a lower team like C9, there's no disrespect to them. They're an excellent team, but on terms of like SSG Optic, Shopify, just some gap between them. And I think Sentinel was able to close it out because they already had that experience of Quadrant, right? In the pool play going game 5. So they kind of knew what was going to be expected of them when eventually game 5 did hit. So good job to Sentinels. Again, GG's C9. I expect C9 to be a top contender here in the next event, especially to keep that same roster and work on those team strategies, the cohesion, all that stuff, and scrimming again. Expect C9 to upset some pretty powerful teams in the upcoming tournaments. Now, Quadrant and Proton. Okay, so I have something to say about this. I was watching from the sidelines, and I can't tell you how bad I felt for Talik, right? He was sitting right next to the crowd, and he was the one getting all of the feedback from the crowd, right? These guys are yelling in French. They're yelling in some other language I can't even tell you. They were just, after every kill, someone with the French flag would go up to the screen and start waving in front of his face. Like, as a competitor, I'd get checked, right?
What?
Like, no matter how well you think you can manage like high stress environments, this was like essentially bullying, right? How close these fans got to the players was unbelievable, right? A little spoiler alert, when Space Station played against Quadrant, I think it was Stellar who sat in Talik's spot. They had to put a physical barrier, right, between him and the fans. Because it got so crazy. And I wish there were like cameras on the crowd because like, brother, that was insane. And I was talking to Hunter after that, and he was telling me like, yeah, like you just can't like focus because you don't have like the white noise doesn't really cut out all the noise you're hearing from the crowd. And then again, after every single kill that Quadrant gets, the crowd erupts. So imagine you're trying to keep comms up, right? And like you can't even hear your teammates because of how loud the crowd was. It's insane. So to see a 3-1 in favor of Quadrant, I'm gonna have to say I think Proton should have beat them, if I'm being honest. You have a really good roster. You have Collect. We know he's the top Slayer. You have Druck, first land back. Like he's with his duo Talik. He's a great player, great support player. He does all the crazy things. Then you have Last Shot, right? We don't give Wyatt enough credit. I've played against him in the free-for-alls. I know how cracked he is. I used to hate him, and now I like him. He's my boy now. But he's learned a lot in the past few months, and to be on that top skilled roster, you think Proton could come out on this, but I'm gonna have to say the crowd took that victory for Quadrant. But no disrespect to both teams, Quadrant is a great team on paper, even without the crowd. But in that day, fate was sealed, and yeah, just F in the chat for Proton.
Yeah, it was that crowd was insane. I like it. Just it's one of those if you know kind of things. Like if you were there, you experienced how crazy that was. Which you know what, like I kind of like that home field advantage type of stuff. I want to see more of that in esports. Like we saw SSG ride that to a win. We saw Arlington Optics play absolutely fantastic. Like it's cool to have like a little home field advantage. I'm sure FaZe will have a little something like that in Atlanta. It was cool, especially like the aspect of the marching band. I know a lot of people hated it. I loved it. I was like, yo, what the hell is going on here, bro? Like that was insane. That was fun. And then I love the fact that you brought up the game 5 the Sentinels went into. Like Sentinels went to a game 5 with Optic. They went to a game 5 with Quadrant. We go into early. They went to game 5 with Space Station. Dude, Sentinels were going into so many game 5s at this tournament. There was just a lot more than expected, but Sentinels were ready for Cloud9. They move on. I don't know if they're ready for Optic because Optic did pull off the 3-0 against them. Now, mind you, this is after going into pool play, going to war with them in the game 5. This time, Optic, they meant business in that round 3 to make it into the top 4. Optic 3 over Sentinels, and then this right here was a little bit crazy to me. This right here was I got the chance to cast this match toward the end of the day and like see the emotion and it was something else. Space Station Gaming beat out Quadrant in the game 5. Mind you, very similar to what we saw in the winners bracket, by the way. Sentinels were up 2-0 against SSG. SSG reverse sweep. Quadrant were up 2-0 versus SSG. SSG reverse sweep again in order to win this matchup, and the Quadrant players don't get up. They have their hands like and faces in their hands. Like they are literally fighting back tears for their lives. And a rowdy crowd, or I don't know if rowdy was the word, to be honest with you, like a crazy crowd, a passionate crowd, what I thought were gonna be like boos and something crazy and security having to escort them out, instead was a standing ovation for Quadrant. It was one of the most emotional tugging things that I've seen in Halo esports. You have the emotions coming out of the players who are obviously so upset. They just got reverse swept. Like they put everything on the line. They really wanted to win, not only for themselves but for the fans and the people that are making noise behind them. And then a standing ovation by those same fans. It was honestly beautiful. Like I was fighting back tears because it was that like beautiful of a moment, to be honest with you. So SSG with the 3-2 reverse sweep, Optic with the 3-0 in lower bracket round 3.
Yeah, Tony, I'm gonna hop on that Space Station Quadrant series. Yeah, going up 2-0 on home field advantage, right, against the top seed at this tournament. It was heartbreaking, to say the least, right? Like I don't think heartbreaking describes the emotions that those players were probably feeling. That was probably like one of the lower points in their lives. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, was Game 5 Recharge Slayer?
I wish I could actually see it on here. Was it Recharge? It definitely could have been. It definitely could have been.
I just know it was like a back and forth, and it was just like a beautiful game of Halo being played. You could see all the calculated plays that every single team was using to break a setup or to hold a setup. It was really impressive, and like neither team was out, and not until the end. And it was just one play that would just ultimately cost them. Like you'd see like a Slayer, and like a team would go 40 and the other team had like 29. Like you could kind of tell like who's going to win that, right? This one, you could put money on either team, and you wouldn't know until like the last few seconds of the match. But it's heartbreaking. Again, like Space Station reverse sweeping twice in the same tournament, right? Against a big dog. It's insane. The score was 50-48. Like it came down to like one piv, right? Or one shock rifle shot that could have changed everything. One camouflage, one plasma sticky. Both teams played phenomenal Halo on map 5. But yeah, Tony, like Quadrant, the fans, great support out of them. Those players needed it. And yeah, dude, that was a crazy game. If Quadrant would have beat Space Station, I'm telling you, there wouldn't have been a venue for Sunday. That venue was going down. It was collapsing. The floors were caving in because the amount of crazy love for Quadrant would have crushed the entire stadium down. But yeah, let's talk about the other series here with Sentinels and Optic. That kind of surprised me. You know, Sentinels were playing pretty good Halo all tournament, and the Optic come out, just 3-0 them in a convincing fashion. It's kind of upsetting, to be honest, right? As an Optic fan, like you're happy, but then as a Sen fan and wanting more storylines, you wanted some more, right? Because look at the scores here. You had 3-1 King, you had a 50-32 Slayer, 2-0 Oddball Streets. Yes, like the scores may seem like they were not that close, but I promise you, it probably came down to a few plays again that ultimately costed Sentinels the victory.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Going into the lower bracket finals, I was kind of a firm believer in Shopify Rebellion because I feel like when playing up against SSG, which is obviously one of the top dogs, like this series looked, somewhat close. It was like it was 3-0 in game 1. Obviously, that's not close. Shopify Rebellion. Game 2 was closer. Game 3, it says 3-1, but I got the chance to cast that matchup. I'm sorry, I was on the desk for that matchup, and that game, it was like they were up 3-0 with like a minute and a half on the clock. Shopify Rebellion started playing Slayer, and that was the only reason why SSG got that one cap on us. Like literally, it was like almost mathematically impossible for SSG to cap 3, and Shopify Rebellion was just playing keep away. So to me, this was more dominant than even the score line showed in the winners bracket versus SSG. And I thought maybe it could be the same thing against Optic Gaming, but 50-49 in that game 2 Slayer, and even a 1 cap difference in the game 3. Literally only 1 cap between the two. If I remember correctly, I want to say it went to overtime. It was like a crazy cap that Optic had gotten to force the overtime because Shopify were up 2-1, and like Dead Zone drops the flag, gets his shields back, Lucid hops on the flag, then Dead Zone jumps in, gets body blocks. It was pretty crazy, and then eventually Optic win it in overtime to 3-0 and to make it into the grand finals. Shopify Rebellion, they fought well. They were literally 1 game away from, or 1 kill away from getting at least one of those games, but then FaZe with the 4-2 in the grand finals.
Yeah, Tony, Shopify and Optic, that was a heartbreaker series. As a Shopify fan, I love Soul Snipe, I love Donnie, everyone, that cycle's cool, mental's cool. Dude, if you see that score, yes, map 1 was kind of like an Optic convincing win, right? 250-118 recharge. It's King of the Hill. I mean, it's Strongholds, right? It could be a snowbally map. Like the 50-49 line fire, oh my god, that was crazy. I was, because at the end of that match, it was Donnie, right, suppressed with camo, and I think didn't all of Optic go? Weren't they all huddled up in A?
Oh, I can break this down for you. Actually, I was supposed to break this down on the main stage. I actually even took. Bro, I even clipped this moment and I took it. I was supposed to break it down the main stage and it didn't happen. So Donnie with camo pushes over toward the A side, which all Optic were in the A side of the map. They all went bottom mid and flipped the map and ended up towards tower. Suppress realized that real quick, and even with camo, he sprints towards sandbags, sprints towards top mid, and was ready with camo. Mental's pushing up over towards dummies to try to help him. Suppress gets into a fight with, I forgot who it was, on the dice side in front of tower, on the little dice, and he's getting into a fight. Mental's pushing up dummies ramp. He wants to help, and then out of nowhere, Dead Zone double melees Mental from hiding in that weird corner on C plat. Literally, Dead Zone trusted his teammate to fight camo. Didn't help, pretty much didn't help in that situation, and then Mental comes in, tries to help his teammate, and Dead Zone was waiting for him.
I was wondering how Optic won that map. Yeah, I didn't see it from the. I think the camera was on Donnie, so I didn't see Dead Zone and Mental fighting it out on dummy ramp. But that's crazy. What, so he was hiding in the.
He was hiding in C plat corner. I'm about to pull it up right now because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to put it up right now.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
No, dude. Okay, listen, right? A standoff on live fire Slayer.
This is it right here. I got it right now already.
I'll see this.
So this is when Suppress checks A. He's like, nobody's here. So he sprints, goes towards top mid. Now watch this. Dead Zone's right here hiding on C plat corner. On the right side, this is Mental right here pushing dummies. Suppress is gonna fight somebody over towards here, and Dead Zone stays here. He knows. I don't even know, bro. Look. Suppress is fighting right here, and Dead Zone's still in that corner and waiting. So he gets the kill. He goes tower, and then you see Dead Zone gets the melee kill on Mental. Mental was pushing up Dummy's ramp, and he just runs into Dead Zone, who must have still been in that corner. I wish I could like turn it, but I can't turn it.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You just don't expect someone to hide there on the 50-49 situation.
Like, it's so crazy. He's still there. Like, there's a whole battle right here. He sprints over towards tower, and then somehow, like, he must have stayed in that corner. He must have, like, knew. I don't know. I have no idea.
And we're not even talking about, like, the score, right? The score was, like, 49-49, but it's also, no, wait, 48-49. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But there was 10 seconds left, Tony. 10 seconds left. Right? In that corner that Dead Zone was hiding in is so risky because if Donnie checked out with Camo, comboed him, and Mental was there to clean him up, Donnie could have lived, and it would have forced Dice Guy to fight dummies or fight the guys coming through Nest. So it was just a risky play, and it ended up working in the favor of Optic. But yeah, I think after that map 2 loss, it was heartbreaking. And they had some fire in them left, right, on Forbidden. But then again, Optic just clutches up like they always usually do, for the most part. And that was, yeah. I really think if they replayed that series a million times, 50-50 win chance for every team.
And then FaZe 4-2. First 2 games go straight to FaZe. Back-to-back answers back coming out of Optic. I really wasn't too surprised with Oddball. Like FaZe actually sneakily became a really good Oddball team like late season 2, but Optic were the best Oddball team in the tournament, so I wasn't surprised by that. Stronghold's Live Fire was a good win for them. But then FaZe, they ended back-to-back Slayer and King of the Hill, which King of the Hill, Optic have historically always been beating FaZe on King of the Hill for some reason, and for FaZe to end it in a 3-0 on that very game type was big for them in the grand finals.
Yeah, Tony, I'd say like this grand finals was kind of I think the map Solitude really kind of determined everything, to be honest. Because us H5, we have some history on that map, but it can get very, very snowbally very, very quickly. And I think FaZe had a pretty good start, and where Optic had to play catch up. I'm not quite sure, but like you can't really, once you get spawn trapped in S1, it's so hard to come back. Like they were playing catch up the entire time, and they're already tied up 2-2 in the series, and they come from losers bracket, right? So if FaZe won that, it was kind of like the dagger, I'd say, in the series, because next thing you know, you had that recharge hill, and we saw how Optic was so close to capping. I think it was 2 different hills, but it just came down to a nitty gritty play, right? 1 more second, and then FaZe somehow comes up with the craziest push known to mankind to take Optic out and to recap that, like from a 0 to 100% hold. It was insane to watch the grand finals. Like FaZe showed their dominance, and Optic was doing their best to keep up, but ultimately they fell short. And I think it came down to Solitude and how checking it was to get spawn killed on that map. So
it was a great tournament, just like inside and out, like just the storylines, the game 5s, like people counting FaZe out, which I guess I'll put myself in there. I said they get 3rd place, so I guess I'll put myself in there, counting FaZe out, and for them to come back with the win. The only thing that made this tournament even crazier is the fact that one person predicted the top 4 perfectly, and I gotta show you this. This is hilarious to me. One person predicted the top 4 perfectly, and he's right on top, and it was freaking Guy Blaze. He had FaZe, Optic, Rebellion, and SSG in 4th. Nobody would have predicted SSG in 4th except for freaking Blaze. To this day, this has to be the greatest prediction ever. This man needs to play the lottery.
Yeah, no, Blaze knew something, man. He had some insider information. Like he knew the script from the jump.
I don't know, bro. Like, this made no, like, when I saw SSG in fourth, I'm like, yo, Blaze, what are you smoking? And then you find out he was the only one that was right. Oh my god.
Crazy.
But either way, London was really cool. We were walking around there like freaking rock stars. Like, people, I had a line of people asking me for freaking autographs and pictures, and I'm like, yo, who am I, bro? Like, they were passionate, they were loud. The food was interesting. You know, I got to try some stuff I never tried before.
For sure.
I got to experience.
Yeah.
I got to experience some stuff. I will say, the UK and London, they got bacon right. I never even thought you could make bacon better. But they got, like, instead of, like, they call it streaky bacon, what we eat, like, where it's like strips, they eat like full on like ham bacon. I don't even know. But it's like, it's salty, it's delicious. Like, somehow they made bacon better. We're gonna have to carry that over to the UK. It was just an amazing experience. I feel like I like you said, you've never been to London. I know I've never been to London. I would love to have another HCS event there. Hopefully we get private jets this time, because being on a flight for 9 hours was not it. We need Halo to get on that point. We get private jets or something, because oh my gosh, that flight almost killed me. But I'm so happy to say that I experienced HCS London, and I wish I could have taken all of you guys with me. Ivan, is there I'm about to close out this video. This actual recording has been running for almost an hour and a half, actually. Is there anything you want to say for the people at home? I'm gonna pull up your I pull up your Twitter here, which also has your Twitch. Is there anything you want to say to the people at home, and where can they find you?
Yeah, so I want to thank you, shout out Tony, for having me on this. I appreciate it. I love going on these talk podcasts, whatever it is, right? Just talking about Halo or anything in general, I love doing. So thank you for the opportunity, Tony. I appreciate you very much, as well as your fan base. You know, you do an amazing job when you're casting, and I'm glad to see the glow up from Halo 5, observing our money eights all the way to the main stage casting. So keep up the good work, Tony. A bright future ahead of you. And yeah, as well as for myself, you guys can find me here on Twitter at Flurriously. I tend to post a lot of like memes and whatnot. And then I also stream Halo at twitch.tv/Flurriously_. So you guys want to watch my gameplay? I do a lot of free-for-all stuff. I do a lot of 4v4 stuff. And yeah.
Well, when this goes up on YouTube, I'll make sure that both of those are in the description down below. Thank you so much for your kind words, and thank you so much for doing this. It really was fun, and it was just, like I said, it was a great event. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of HCS London. Or were you a fan of FaZe? Were you a believer in FaZe? Are you mad that Optic didn't win? Did you like Blaze had SSG coming fresh off a win in Arlington, getting 4th place this event? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one, which literally will be tomorrow. So peace out, guys.